Why does it feel like Apple software has become a complete buggy mess in the past couple of years? I spent the last week or so collecting a ton of examples of Apple software not behaving correctly. I'm talking everything from minor UI glitches to entire applications or features not working altogether. And it's a shame because Apple software used to be one of its main selling points. A lot of iPhone users like myself were more than happy to give up some of the customization that you would get on the Android side in exchange for a lot more stability and features that just worked every time. But it seems like in the last couple of years, Apple software has gone downhill really fast, and the bugs are just getting out of hand. Let me know in the comments if you've also noticed this trend, but I put out a post on YouTube asking you guys to send me screenshots and recordings of bugs in Apple software, and I got a lot of responses. Text misaligned in the settings app, the music player turning into a complete mess, spontaneous sideways keyboards, downloading an app that you already have, the dynamic island taking over other buttons, the music player on the lock screen bugging out. A really common one is the notification stack not behaving itself correctly, passcode not functioning at all, the standby alarm clock completely breaking, this eyeball-shaped edit button, and this wacky widget where the text is all over the place. And let me tell you, that has just barely scratched the surface. So in today's video, I want to dive into all of this. What is going on with Apple software? Let's dive into it right after a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by BootDev. BootDev is the best tool for learning code. It uses the latest techniques from modern game design to keep you engaged and invested in learning. Learn back-end development from start to finish in Python, Go, JavaScript, and more. I've been using BootDev to start learning Python, and from the very beginning, its comprehensive explanations walked me through a topic that I've always been confused by. From simple introduction lessons, it smoothly ramps up, building upon your knowledge. Plus, if you need further explanation, AI assistant Boots can give you more details. And as someone who has always struggled learning how to code, BootDev has given me the most understanding of what I'm doing and helped me learn the only way that truly sticks, by actually writing code and building real projects. Creating an account to demo the interactive features of the courses is free, and you can read and watch all content in guest mode to make sure BootDev is something you'd be interested in using. So go to boot.dev and use my code LukeMiani to get 20% off your entire first year if you choose an annual plan. Big thanks to BootDev for sponsoring, and now let's get back to the video. Okay, so let's explore what's going on with Apple software the last couple of years. It's getting worse and worse, and for the purposes of this video, while we're going to be mainly talking about iOS, because that's what people are most vocally concerned about, these problems apply across the board. A lot of the examples that I have to show you take place in Carplay or iPad or Mac OS, because increasingly a lot of Apple's software features are rolling out across the board. One of the most annoying bugs in iOS 18 is the Pink Photos app. And this is something that has been happening to me a lot on the Mac. Whenever I open up the Photos application, I'm greeted with this wall of pink. You can even see the timestamps for some of the videos in my library, and the entire app is frozen and will not function. And for me anyway, I can quit out of the app and reopen it, and it will still happen. The only way to resolve this bug is to completely restart the computer. And I've been having that about, once a week or so. I've also been having this weird Apple Maps bug where the different map elements phase in and out as you zoom and pan throughout the map. And this is where things have definitely taken a turn for the worst in the past year or so. While it's been pretty common to have visual glitches that don't really affect functionality, lately it seems that bugs are getting more and more impactful on core user functions. Here's a bug where AirDrop doesn't work. It doesn't matter what button you press, it doesn't turn on AirDrop at all. In this bug, you can see that the widgets aren't working properly on a lock screen. They're buggy, they won't rearrange correctly, and they're all showing up completely blank. This is an absolutely broken interface. Here's another one that a viewer sent in where the wallpaper is completely bugged and only shows up when you swipe down to the lock screen. And one of my favorite bugs that I have to imagine was an act of some rogue programmer was, for the longest time, if you used voice dictation to say the word racist, it would briefly flash the word Trump. And this is one that I saw all over the internet. I didn't believe it, but I recorded that myself. That is 100% real. and frankly quite hilarious. Here's another hilarious bug showing someone with 2,725 hours and 30 minutes of screen time in a single day. That makes sense. And even something as simple as the calculator is not immune to these bugs. Take a look at this. 50,000 divided by 12 is definitely not 66.6 repeating. The processor in your phone is literally just a fancy calculator. How is it possible for it to be wrong? But those weren't even some of the most infuriating bugs that I've been facing recently. Another user submission here is the camera not focusing. I'm really glad that one of you guys sent that in because I've been trying to record this issue for ages, but obviously it's a little hard to do because it happens very randomly, but it happens all the time. Another one that really bothers me is the music player not working. Barris sent in this video showing that it will not play, it will not pause, and none of the controls function whatsoever. This happens for me very frequently when I'm using Carplay, and that opens up another can of worms, which is the absolute avalanche of bugs in Carplay, especially wireless Carplay. One that happens to me all the time is this horrible artifacting that completely takes over the entire screen. But more and more for me lately, it just completely locks up altogether. Non-functional, non-responsive, and it's really annoying when I'm trying to follow directions, for example. I mean, I really don't know what we're doing here. These, in many cases, are very, very basic core system functions, like AirDrop or the volume not working. Another user sent in this video where they couldn't actually mute the volume because it was bouncing back. How are we still having issues with volume, with playing and pausing music, with opening applications in 2025? This is just out of control, and it's so counter to what Apple has always been about. In fact, 15 years ago, Apple released OS X Snow Leopard, and its only purpose was to make the most stable version of macOS, because previous versions had had a lot more bugs than Apple was known to have. So they literally went out of their way to release an entire operating system whose only reason for being was to remove bugs. And we've now gone from that point to where these bugs can actually impact my workflow on a day-to-day basis. It's not just little things like turning on your computer and noticing that a window is completely misshapen. Thank you for that submission. I'm talking about bugs that have actually made it into YouTube videos. Yeah, that's right. On my last video, I was editing in Final Cut Pro, and I went to drop in a sound effect that I use for my transitions, and it didn't appear, so I dragged in another one. But there's a phantom waveform of the full thing that plays, so listen. Now, the first thing that we need to is, it's playing the full volume thing. Even if I delete this, heck, I can go ahead and delete the music too. No audio here. Let's get back to the video. Now, the first thing, and it's still playing it. And by the way, I never found a fix for that. Yeah, if you go back and watch my most recent video right before this on YouTube, you will hear at the end of my sponsor segment when it transitions back to the content, that full volume transition sound effect. I just couldn't get rid of it, so it made it into the final upload. There was nothing I could do. So why is it that Apple software feels so unpolished these days? What has changed in the past few years? Well, the biggest thing that I can point to is that Apple has started to sort of blend a lot of its platforms together. In the past, as we mentioned, Apple sort of treated iOS and macOS as separate entities, which makes sense because they built their own chips for the iPhone and Intel chips for the MacBook. But nowadays, everything from your HomePod to your Apple Watch to your iPhone to your MacBook is all running on Apple Silicon-based hardware. So it makes sense that the software would also be broadly developed across all of these different platforms. But that has started to lead to applications not feeling as bespoke and well-crafted for the platforms that they're running on. And add to that the fact that every single year, Apple needs to come up with a new list of features to add to their devices to make the new software worth upgrading to. You're just stacking and stacking and stacking on top of all of these previous features and bugs, making it harder to find and fix them. But honestly, the biggest factor at play here, I think, is time. Software is a bit like sedimentary rock. It's sort of built on top of layers of itself. And over time, as you stack more and more features and versions on top of each other, you're putting a lot of weight on base code that could be, in many cases, 10 or 15 years old at this point. And so when you start adding things like dynamic islands and action buttons and camera control and new iMessage features, and you start adding all of this complexity on top of your code base, it stands to reason that sometimes those things aren't going to mesh properly. But while I can't even imagine the challenges of working on a code base as massive and important as iOS, part of me just says, well, yeah, that's kind of your job. I understand that it's difficult to work on a code base that can be 15, 20, 25 years old, but that's kind of how it goes. So as we approach WWDC and Apple introducing the next version of macOS and iOS 19, I really want to see a focus on stability. I think this is what we've all been needing for the last 2 or 3 software versions. So now is the time, Apple. It's not too late to make it right, but you need to focus on stability over features. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Are you excited for iOS 19, or are you, like me, frankly, a little bit nervous? Let me know in the comments down below, and of course, a big thanks to you guys for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you did, leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.